2016, the world was shocked by the sudden deaths of Carrie Fisher and then her mother, Debbie Reynolds. They died within 24 hours of one another. For Todd Fisher, they were very personal losses. Debbie Reynolds was his mom, Carrie Fisher, his big sister. Together, they had shared the media spotlight for almost 60 years. Watch. Todd Fisher was born into Hollywood royalty, the son of America's sweetheart, Debbie Reynolds, and also Eddie Fisher. He grew up in the spotlight alongside his older sister, Carrie Fisher, who would go on to play Princess Leia in the Star Wars movies. In the 1950s, a young Todd was swept up in one of Hollywood's biggest scandals when his father had an affair with film icon Elizabeth Taylor. She became the first of Todd's 4 stepmoms. Today, his family includes his half-sister, actress Jolie Fisher, and his niece, Billie Lourd. At the end of 2016, Todd mourned the loss of both his sister and mother, who died less than 24 hours apart.
There were no finer people that I had ever known than my mother and my sister.
Todd Fisher has written a memoir in tribute to his mother and sister. It's called My Girls, A Lifetime with Carrie and Debbie. Todd, welcome to you.
Thank you.
So when Carrie died, it was a shock. She was 60 years old?
Yeah, we had big plans. We knew my mother was getting older, and she had had a stroke about a year earlier, and we thought, we'd had these conversations like, hey, you know, we're going to lose, at some point, you have to face the fact that we're going to lose our mom. And that was hard for both of us. And we sat out in my backyard and talked about it, and Carrie cried, and, you know, we kind of came to grips with the notion that that was something we were facing soon. We never thought. In fact, we had made plans. Carrie and I had said, hey, you know, we need to travel more together like we used to do. And we had all these elaborate plans. You know, you just don't know what tomorrow could bring. And, you know, the beautiful thing I will say, though, is that we did get a chance, both my mother and with my sister. There were no unspoken words, unspoken things that needed to be said, you know, no regrets, so to speak.
It was all said.
You know, and that's an important thing. And I would really, it would have been way harder had I not been able to say the important things to them.
And you're very open in the book about how your family had accepted that drug use was going to be a part of Carrie's life. Well, that rehab at that point was almost a joke. She'd been so many times.
Yeah, I had a front row seat to a lot of rehabs, and Carrie could have taught the rehabs at a certain point. And so, you know, we came to accept that that was just part of what it was. And so the issue became, how do you manage that? How do we keep her with us? You know, my mother, in terms, would be a classic enabler, you know, by the medical definition. But then the question is, would you have had her as long? There were plenty of people that had practiced tough love on their siblings and parents and other things, and those people are gone. So I thought we had a pretty good run. 60 years, you know, was a good run.
Given the extent of the drug use, yeah.
Oh, well.
I thought it was so interesting that you, because we all went with this story that that your mom died of a broken heart. Right? Within 24 hours, she died after Carrie died. And you make the point strongly that that's not true.
Now, I got annoyed, in fact, when people kept saying that, because the usual, that is sort of the pat response, you know, or it seems to be the obvious response. But since I was this close to her when she left, and words were spoken literally moments before she left, there was no way to misinterpret.
Your mom.
Right. Debbie, I was sitting with her in her bed, literally, and she had some words with me where she said she really wanted to be with Carrie. Now, I thought she was speaking ethereally. You know, I didn't know we met in the next 30 minutes. You know, but my mother knew how to make an entrance and an exit. You know, they taught you that in Hollywood. And I did not know I was witnessing anything of the sort. She was just kind of recapping things that she wanted me to handle. Or, you know, I had said, for an example, she had said, I don't want a big fancy memorial tomb, you know. And then she said to me that just literally hours before she left, you bring up a good point. Maybe it would be good to have something, because now that Carrie was gone, she was thinking the fans might want to come and see Carrie. But she's saying, I might want to be there with her. So she's just recapping these things. And the next thing she knows, she's literally just closes her eyes and says, I want to be with Carrie.
And now, that was it, that she wanted to be with her, to have her not be alone as it had been from Carrie's birth.
That's right.
We have to pick it up there, squeeze in a quick break. Coming up, what it was like to watch Star Wars for the first time while sitting next to your sister, Princess Leia. And we're back now with Todd Fisher, who's written a memoir called My Girls, about his mother, Debbie Reynolds, and his sister, Carrie Fisher. So on the subject of Carrie, Star Wars, huge. It's how we came to know her and love her.
Our princess.
One of the things she revealed in 2016, right before she died, was that when she was filming that movie, she was 19, Harrison Ford was 33, he was married at the time. She and he had an affair.
Yes.
And you say in your memoir, she regretted revealing that. Why?
Well, initially, she didn't think anything of it. It was part of her diary. Literally, that book was based on her diary that she had written during the film. And my mother had saved that diary for her. And then she wrote this book based on that. And she had no idea that it was going to make as big of a deal as it did. She thought, oh, those are Victorian days. My mother was like, yeah, you shouldn't say this. You know, maybe leave that out. And she's like, no one's going to care anymore. It's so long ago. And it became a bit of a backlash. You know, there was an element of people like, whoa, she's married, et cetera, not a good thing. You know, maybe you don't want to admit that. And what was interesting is at first Carrie was like, no big deal. Then I was sitting there one day with my mom, and Carrie was like, maybe that wasn't such a smart idea.
Maybe you were right about this one, Mom.
Mom knows a few things.
Is it true that she thought Star Wars might be the end of her career?
Oh, yeah. I was sitting in the front. Well, we arrived at the back lot for a screening of Star Wars before it came out. And she was nervously smoking outside, and she didn't want to go in. So we literally waited till the movie had almost began, and there was no seats left. So we sat in the front row. And we were
There's no seats for Princess Leia at Star Wars.
We got past it. She's looking up at the screen like this, and she's like, oh my God, this could be the end of my career, oh well, I'll go back into singing. Maybe she hadn't even figured out writing yet, right? And anyway, that spaceship flew over, the battle cruiser in the beginning, and I looked at her and I said, hey, this is no B movie. And the rest of course, is history. I mean, she immediately understood. Every other movie after that, like when they're making Return of the Jedi or Empire, they knew those were going to be huge hits at that point. Yeah. But Star Wars was very different. Everybody was nervous.
I loved her in When Harry Met Sally.
Oh, that's a great part.
It was a great movie. Debbie Reynolds was, Carrie Fisher was amazing in it. The book is just so full of those little vignettes of your family and your very famous family and your mom's quick wit. Thank you for sharing this with us.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah.
I guess everybody's going to get to
Everyone in the audience is going home with a copy of My Girls. Todd, all the best. We'll be right back.